10 years ago today, I died. And I came back with a mission that I never saw coming. It's the anniversary of my pulmonary embolism and near-death experience, and I've spent the past decade unraveling the meaning behind what happened, how it changed me, and why I was saved at all. Today, I want to honor that experience, not with sadness or sympathy, but with soul level truth. So, I'm answering some of the most important questions about that day that I've been asked by others, and just the curiosity in an interview style, and about the awakening that followed and how it shaped me into who I am now. This is a celebration of rebirth, of becoming, and of purpose. And I thank you so much for being here with me. I'm Jennifer Halliburton with the Awakened Jenn Tarot. And like I said, this is something different than what I typically do, but I think that this is an important, it's just a hugely important day to me. Like I said, 10 years ago today, my life changed in an undeniable way. And the word pulmonary embolism, even, it wasn't in my awareness on that day. It was a few days later where I realized it, but it was on that day that it hit. And it was on that day that my whole life changed. And so this whole episode is going to be just looking into that and honoring that time, and just seeing how far I've come just in that 10 years. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the questions. And so the first question is, can you take us back to the day? What do you remember about the moment that everything changed? And so that day, and so I want to just say, I had just had a septoplasty and turbinate reduction surgery. And so it's not a nose job, but it was work on my nose. And so I had that done 5 days prior, and everything was going okay. And that day in particular, I felt okay. I was getting excited about getting those splints out of my nose. That was the biggest thing that I was dealing with. But as far as any symptoms, I wasn't dealing with any kind of symptoms. I was actually having a very good day that day. I remember that we got up, we went to church, we even went out to eat afterwards, and I felt better than I had in a while, honestly. And so I went to bed that night feeling okay. And there was at one point in the night that something hit, and I just did realize that I completely stopped breathing. And my experience of it was just like this moment of just like my eyes just like, whoa, what just happened? And in that moment, it was like I had plastic wrap over my mouth and my nose, and so there was nothing going in or out. And I just remember just kind of this frozen in time moment. And at that point is where I know the NDE kind of started it, but that's the moment of like me knowing that, oh, I can't breathe. I'm not exactly sure even how I started breathing again, because it was just this complete just stop, and until like I was finally able to breathe again. And when I was able to breathe again, what I remember is like a cough came out, and then I was just like coughing nonstop. And I just remember thinking, just gosh, that was just so strange. I don't know what just happened to me. I knew I'd stopped breathing, but it didn't make sense to me that it was something this level serious, so my brain wasn't going there. I thought maybe I had sleep apnea, even though I'd never had anything like that before. And it was just strange. But like at that time I was still married, and my husband was laying next to me. He never even woke up. And so, I woke up that morning, and I felt like, there was just like this elephant sitting on my chest. I did know that. And it didn't make sense, but I thought, okay, maybe I'm getting like it's settled into my lungs, and like I'm getting some sort of chest cold, or I'm having an asthma attack. I really had no idea what to think about this. And my brain was coming up with everything, but this is something serious that you need to get checked out. It wasn't looking at that at all. And so I remember, like, once I got up that morning and I started, even trying to do anything, that my husband was the one who noticed that you are like turning like completely white every time you stand up. And so I was completely losing color, just trying to walk across the floor, just completely out of breath and feeling like I was going to pass out. And I knew like he was right that I wasn't feeling well, but I wasn't putting the pieces together. And I even told him that morning, like, so I had this weird thing happen last night. I kind of stopped breathing. And it was like neither one of us took that moment as serious as what it was. And so it was like, I don't know if it was sleep apnea, but it was just, I'm breathing now. So it was not a big deal. But, that moment itself, that moment itself, I didn't know. And so that kind of falls into the next question is, did you know right away how serious it was? Or was there a moment where it all clicked? And so, no, I had no idea. I was in denial as deep as you could get it. And, it felt crazy to me to think like this might be something serious. Why would it be something serious? I didn't do anything. There's nothing, like I couldn't put any of those pieces together. And so I had the appointment to get the splints out already set. And so as my husband just kept telling me, hey, you are not looking good and you need to get checked out. I'm like, well, I've got an appointment. I'll just see what they have to say. And so I went to that appointment, and this is a post-op appointment. And I remember, and see, by this point, I had put enough pieces together that I knew I wasn't completely okay because my son has asthma. And so I had like a pulse ox that I was using, and I knew that those numbers did not look good. I didn't understand the numbers, but I did know that they weren't looking good. And so I went into the doctor to get the splints out. And I remember writing on the paper that I was having shortness of breath, and, some chest pain. I remember telling it to the nurse, and I even told it to the doctor, and not a single one of them ever did any type of vital signs on me. They did not do any, like, I don't even understand how I went to a post-op appointment and you didn't even check, for my pulse. You didn't listen to my lungs. You didn't do any of that. My blood pressure, none of that. After I'm telling you that I'm having chest pains and shortness of breath, you did none of those things. And they just were like, yeah, that's common to have drainage. That's common to have drainage after this type of surgery. They just took the splints out and that was it. And like, if they had actually done that stuff right there, just the vital signs that day, they would have known something terrible had happened to me. I trusted them because they were doctors. I didn't realize that in this moment they were trying to cover themselves. And so like, that's a whole other story. And I will bring that part out in this because it's part of the story, but they were trying to cover themselves and they did not check any of my vitals that day. They sent me on my way as though everything was completely okay. And at that moment, the embolism had already happened and I just didn't know it. And so, my husband was still not satisfied with that answer, but I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? I went to the doctor and they didn't seem concerned at all. So I still tried a few more days to just kind of get through it. And it just wasn't getting any better. And that pulse ox, it was showing me like my heart rate was 170s, and that's not normal for me. My normal heart rate is, like down in the 60s. I have a typically low heart rate, and my oxygen was down in the low 80s. And like, that's terrible. That's very terrible. If you know anything about those statistics. And then I can't remember what my blood pressure was, but I know that top number was just way through the roof and the bottom number was super low. It was really bad. And so I set up an appointment to go to my regular doctor to have them check me out. And the minute that I go in there and they did the vitals, now they're scared. Now they're looking at me like I am already a ghost. They just like, they brought instantly like 2 doctors in to listen to my lungs at the same time. And here they are sending me straight to the emergency room, and they're pretty much knowing, what has happened to me. And they're just looking at me like, I cannot even believe she's standing. I cannot even believe she's standing. And So I get to the ER, they, do all of the testing, and they find out that, yes, I actually did have a massive bilateral pulmonary embolism. And what that means is I had blood clots that filled both of my lungs, all throughout both of my lungs were completely filled. And so, I mean, I had really, really large clots. In fact, I've got a picture of just one of them. This is just literally one of the clots. And let me make this bigger so that you can even see it. So, I mean, you can just see how deep in it goes, how far down, how big. This is like right there at that aortic, opening. And so like all of the blood vessels of my lungs just got completely impacted just all at once. And I mean, like I said, this is just one, and it was all throughout both of my lungs. And you can just see if it covered up, if it blocked this much of the main arteries that were going into, the lungs, I mean, you can just imagine the damage it was really causing. So that's how I found out how very serious it was in that moment, was once I finally got to the ER, and this was 4 days later. And so the next question is, what was your near-death experience like? Were there visuals, feelings, messages that stayed with you? And so I was able to put together the pieces that, what had happened, and that I had stopped breathing, and that there was, this whole near-death experience, not in the moment, but later, as I was able to really allow the truth of what happened to me to come in. And so what I know from my near-death experience is, like, once I got to that place of my eyes just, and I knew I wasn't breathing, then there was this next moment that happened. And that next moment was just like, it was that separation from my body. And it was like just this complete peace. I was aware of literally everything that was happening in that moment, but yet time didn't actually exist. And I didn't have like any feelings, any thoughts, any sensations, because the body wasn't part of this. And so it was literally just consciousness. I just was. And that's what I knew. I just was. And I was like I said, I was able to take in everything that was in that space to be able to tell you what was happening then. But I wouldn't have been able to put those pieces together until I was actually breathing again, because there was no thought. And because there was no body, there was definitely no pain, and there was no sensations at all. There was no fear. There was no just, oh my gosh, I can't breathe. There was none of that. There was no bright light either. It was just peace. It was just existence. It just was. And it's just honestly one of the most beautiful and profound moments I've ever experienced. Just that level of peace. But like the minute that I started breathing again, that's when all the fear hit. That's when all of the sensations and everything came back to me. And I mean, the adrenaline hit hard. The minute that I started breathing again, the adrenaline rush was intense. Okay, so the next question is, how did that experience shift your spiritual beliefs or awaken you to your purpose? Okay, so that moment itself, because I completely stopped breathing, it led to hypoxic brain injury. My hypoxic brain injury happened right near the pineal gland. And if you know anything about the pineal gland, that is like your connection to God. And so I feel very confident that that was something that was meant to just blow that wide open. And really, this was an activation moment for me and a recalibration moment. And so immediately I was just concerned about getting better, getting healthy. And it did take several years. I mean, we're talking probably up to 5 years past it before I was even, remotely something that I felt normal anymore. And, even afterwards, I had every type of specialist you could think of. I had a bag of medicine, that they like every type of I had just globally, all of these different issues that had come about because of this, because like with the hypoxic brain injury, that caused a whole lot of issues for me that weren't supposed to ever be healed. I mean, because by the time it was even put together, how bad this was and how much was affected. Because see, when I went to the hospital, I didn't really tell them that I had that whole experience of stopping breathing because I didn't put all those pieces together. I didn't know. And so they weren't treating me to the level of the seriousness that it was, because I didn't even know to tell them all of the things until like I was starting to have all of these symptoms, in which I started having what was called myoclonic jerks right away, which is like, it's a form of a seizure, but it's not a full-blown seizure, but like I would have like 60 of those, within a minute, so it was a big deal. That was not just like every time I was getting ready to relax or go to sleep, I would just start, this jerking thing. And it was just really, really not cool. And I got tremors. And so like I would like just like start shaking and, all over. And I had medically induced narcolepsy, which caused big issues for me too. So like I had a lot of stuff that happened that I had to get through physically first before any spiritual stuff ever happened for me. But I mean, it started shifting my life just so drastically, just right away. But like I said, the first part was just, we've got to get through it. We've got to get through the healing part of it. So from there, I definitely shifted all of my spiritual beliefs, but that came with my spiritual awakening that happened in 2021. And this happened in 2015. All right. So what's one message or knowing that came through during or after the experience that you still live by today? Well, the minute that I was able to put together what actually happened and how serious it was, I mean, the first thing I knew is, okay, you have big purpose. You are here for a real reason. There's no reason that you went through that level, you saw the other side. And then you're still here to tell the story. There's no reason for you to still be here unless you didn't have great big purpose. And so that was the thing that I know that it opened up for me, is like, you have a reason. There is a reason why you are still here. And I didn't know what that would be yet, but that sense of purpose grew so huge in me just through this event. So what is one message or knowing that, that was it. Did you feel like a different person after it happened? How would you describe that version of you before and after? Well, let me just show you. Let's just show you. Did I feel like a different person? I was a different person. So this is the day that I came home from the hospital. And I mean, there's similarity still, but I mean, I definitely changed completely, inside and out. It wasn't just that moment. It just changed and shifted everything about me. I knew that it was time for me to really stand up and be myself. And I didn't even know who myself was. And so this was probably the gift of being able to like really start discovering what my purpose was here and why I was, what was the reason, for all of this to happen. But yeah, this was me 10 years ago and versus me today. So I don't know that it's that greatly different, but I mean, I know from the inside out, I am definitely a completely different person. Just my whole belief systems and the way I show up in this world are very different. And the way I present myself is very different. That girl right there would have never been brave enough to put herself out in a public speaking type of way. She just wouldn't have done it. So it's amazing to see really how far I have come from even that moment. Okay. So let's see. What's the next question? What were the first steps you took to rebuild your life after the embolism, and how did they lead to this path? So the first steps I took, again, were just the healing. But once I got to a certain level of healing, that's when I did start shifting my life in other ways. And that's when I ended up getting a divorce. And then from getting the divorce, I had to go from being a stay-at-home mom to now I have to work. And so that work led me to opening up businesses. And that was something I never expected that I would do. And so I ended up opening up a barbershop, a salon, and a photography studio by 2019. And I don't even cut hair. So that was it was a kind of a big deal. But it was like, because when I got back out into the workforce, I had a 14-year gap on my resume and people weren't even wanting to interview me. So I'm like, well, I got to do something. So I ended up just making my own job. And it was a lot of work, a lot of stress, but it was a lot of learning in the process. And then, from there, once I kind of learned that that wasn't the path I wanted, the tarot path started opening up for me and the spirituality path started opening up for me. And that's where I kind of started the shift that got me to where I'm here. But I know that there was so much learning that came from just the experience of, running the barbershop and everything that took, that I know that I'm bringing it into just this level with me as well. So what was the most surprising part of your transformation in the years that followed? The way that my life fell apart just to be completely rebuilt into something that I would have never seen for myself. I always had just like a strong plan, and being autistic, I think like you want to know like how everything's going to line up. And so I always had just this strong vision of just how my life worked. This that I'm living now, nothing that I ever saw. But the way that I started, like even to this path, is I stopped questioning and I just started listening to the intuitive hits, and I started following the intuitive hits as they were showing. And that just kept opening my path more and more. So the more that I followed, the more doors opened for me. And it was just like my life just continued to shift in this direction as long as I followed the call and knew that it was in alignment. And I would always feel it first. It wasn't ever it wasn't a thought. It wasn't a mental thought. It was always this feeling that would come over me of just kind of knowing that this is the direction I need to go. This is my next step that needs to happen. And I never questioned that. I just took it, and it just kept just opening up. And I just see that a lot, like that lotus flower, just the way that it just kind of just continues to just open up and expand. So were there moments that you doubted your path or questioned why this happened to you? And how did you move through that? I absolutely did. So I would say about 6 months after it happened, that's like, I don't think that you can think about like a chronic kind of illness in the moment that you first find out about it in the term of what chronic really means. And so it's like you do this day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. And at first it's just like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm learning my new way of living. But there comes a point where you run into that wall, and it's just like, okay, I'm tired of this. I don't know how much more I can do of this. And especially the type of life that I was living before this happened, I was the one that was like, always there to help other people. I was the one on the go. I was very active, and I was, I didn't need the help. But all of a sudden I did need the help, and I didn't like asking for the help. I didn't like feeling, like a burden to people. But yet at that moment, I absolutely was. I needed the help. And so it definitely got me very low on myself. And even in, let me think, what year was that? 2016. So it was a year after the embolism, we went to Disney World, and I was still struggling so much with just, I couldn't walk long distances without it just completely winding me or making me feel like I was going to pass out. I still had the tremors. I still had the narcolepsy. I was still dealing with all of this stuff. And so when we went to Disney, I got the medical pass, and I was using one of the electric wheelchairs. And because I could walk, and you couldn't really look at me and tell that there was something physically wrong with me, I got so much judgment in that experience that I never wanted to go back to Disney World. And that just, it broke my heart that like, I knew what I was dealing with. I knew the struggles. I knew what would happen if I pushed myself too hard. But I literally got yelled at by people telling me, that I should be ashamed of myself, and, like I'm a faker. And I'm like, what the world? So like it put me like, just for one, to put yourself in a wheelchair you're asking for people to look at you. Okay. And at that time, I didn't want people to look at me. And I especially didn't want people to look at me in a way that made them think that there was, something wrong with me, or even to question those kinds of things. I knew why I was doing it. I knew that why I had to do it. But like that type of attention was uncomfortable. And then to have people actually take that moment and yell at me and tell me, it make me feel even worse at the happiest place on earth. It was a lot. So yeah, I definitely got down and depressed, and I had to fight my way back out of a lot of things. And even just like when the embolism happened, my marriage was already not in a good place. And so there was also this depression about there was nothing I could do. There was literally nothing. I mean, I couldn't take care of myself. I couldn't work. I needed the help. But at the same time, the level of what had happened in my marriage was destroying me too, emotionally too. And I did not know how I would. This was absolutely a dark night of the soul, if there ever was one, because I had no idea how to get myself out of just this really heavy place. I needed help. I couldn't do this on my own. And I just had to just kind of wait and see what happened. All right. So the next question is, how has your near-death experience shaped the way that you work with others today as a healer, channel, and a guide? And I think it helps me a lot because I do understand a lot about, just one, that transition process and, the connection to the other side. I have done readings for people who have had, like these type of deaths, and I've been able to kind of explain to them what my experience was to help them understand what might have happened with their person as well. Because what I know is that if I had not come back, that would have been the most peaceful way to have died. I was in my bed. I did not see it coming. I did not feel any pain. I was not afraid. I would have just been gone. And that was it, just because it happened that fast. It just was that fast. And so I'll give you just some statistics about pulmonary embolism. So 1 in 3 will die from this. And then 1 in 4 die instantly. And so out of all the people I've ever talked to about their pulmonary embolism experience, I've never met anybody that had a story that was as significant as mine. I've never met anybody that completely stopped breathing and lived to tell the story. Those were the people, if I've ever heard anything like that, they're being told by their family members because they didn't survive it. And so for most people, they would get hit with smaller clots, not just the massive, not all throughout both of their lungs. They would get hit with smaller clots that would cause them to feel like they were, out of breath, like that they were kind of out of shape. That's more of what because it could go on for months before they even knew that this was, something that they were dealing with. But mine just hit so hard and fast, and it was just such a big impact that it stopped me right in my tracks. And so, like I said, that's how I use it, is just to kind of help others get some peace about because what I know is that my family would have been the one that would have had the hardest time if I had not survived that. But yet I also want them to have the peace of knowing that had I not survived that, I would have been that was literally the best way for me to die. That's the dream when you think about what, how you want to go. Just going in your sleep without any fear. Just bam. It's just, that's it. All right. So what do you think your soul came back to do? And how are you honoring that mission now? And I guess my soul came back to teach and lead and to show what is actually possible. And I mean, I think that one of my things is just showing transformation, and that you can make different decisions for your life. You can think that your life is supposed to look one way, and you can make completely different decisions at any given point once you realize that that's not the path I'm supposed to be on. I actually want to be here. And so, I mean, if there's anything that people watch with me, I want you to know, you have that power at any time. Just because you made a decision at one point in your life because it made sense, it aligned with you, with where you were at then, it doesn't mean that you can't make different decisions. It doesn't mean that there's not a whole new path open for you. And that's, I mean, definitely what happened with me. And so I do feel like that I had a mission that I did have a mission and a purpose to be able to teach and lead people in the ascension process, because that's ended up what I did. And just really healing those past life, deep childhood wounds, past life karma, all of that, letting that stuff come up to the surface so that we can see it and we can be free from it finally. And so I use that, I mean, just every day in my job now. So what would you say to someone who's currently in the middle of their own dark night, feeling lost or afraid? There's not a lot you can say. In fact, the best thing that you can do if you know that somebody is going through that is just be with them. You don't, like, they don't actually need all the words. They just need to know that they are not alone, that there is a reason for them to keep moving. Because I mean, that's where I was at. And I've had even this year, I've been going through a lot of dark night of the soul again. And I just feel like, because I'm getting ready for a next level, of awakening and, activations. But when you're in that space of that type of pain, that it's really a pain that very, very few people could ever possibly understand. The best thing that people can do is not try to give you the advice. Just be there with you. Just be there with you and help hold the space, because the weight is that big. It is that heavy. And it's just when you are right there alone, and don't stay away from them just because you don't know what to do. Don't stay away from them because you don't know what to say. I'm telling you, you don't have to say anything. Your presence is what they need. They need hugs. They need support in that physical kind of way. Help hold them up. They're going to hold the emotions of it because they have to go through that. But you can be the space that helps give them the physical, here, you've got this. So you're helping to physically hold them together while they're working their way through this. And I think that that's what I needed so badly. And I didn't really have a lot of it, and I still don't have a lot of it. Is if I could ask for anything, it's just, I want people to just hold me. Just hold me when I'm going through this stuff. I will deal with it. I'm not asking you to deal with it. I'm not asking you to solve it because it's too big for any one of us to solve. But I would love for some companionship. I would love for someone to just hold me and say, you are doing amazing. You are so strong. I see you and I know how hard this is for you. And I just I want you to know, I am with you. I am supporting you. I have got you, just all through this, and just covering you with just love and prayers and just all of that, so that you're not just trying to do this all by yourself. That was the hardest part, is feeling just the level of just loneliness and emptiness, and just feeling like there's nobody that can even possibly understand what this really felt like for me. It's isolating. And so I think that if you could just be there, you don't have to say anything, just be there. Your presence is enough. Okay, so 10 years later, how do you feel when you look back on that version of you who almost didn't make it? I am really proud of that version of me. As I think about just everything that she had already done, she had already accomplished. I loved what she was able to do. She got to live her dream life, and I'm very proud of her, for what she accomplished in that. A lot of people will look at just, the stay-at-home mom as something that, it's not got that much value. That was literally my dream come true. Just getting to be there with my kids, just getting to be a mom. That was it. And so I look back at just all of that, and I'm just thankful for, just the experience that I got pre-embolism, because I feel like that I would have felt like I really missed out on life if I didn't get to experience that. Even if the embolism itself was setting me up for my actual mission that was for the world, because I do feel like that's kind of what happened. Is I went from just, my mission was more focused on just my children, to now then I've got more of a global type mission of being able to, express spiritual truths, and bring in, these channeled messages and downloads to the collective that helps people, on their own ascension journey, helps them to see what's even possible. I hope to goodness I'm inspiring people every single day, that they see what's really possible. Because if you looked at me 10 years ago, when this happened, so many people told me that I just give up. I had people telling me, go ahead and get on disability, you're done. And I'm I'm not done. I still have value. I still have something that I want to offer to this world. I don't know what that is, and I don't know how it's going to look because I've got some new limitations that I've got to figure out, but I wasn't near done. And, that was, I think, the spark I needed that kept me moving forward. And I was like, no, I'm going to show you. And so, like, even when I was doing the barbershop, I was still very much dealing with a lot of the symptoms, because I didn't get cured from the symptoms from the embolism until my spiritual awakening in 2021. And within 2 weeks, every bit of that was gone. So I do think that it was spiritually connected. So, because it wouldn't have just been that easy to get rid of all of those things. But for the most part, when I was doing the barbershop, I was still dealing with a lot of the health issues. And it just, like, the struggle, like, she had to work so hard. That girl had to work so hard to get to this place right here. I mean, the healing struggle was just, that was a big one. That was a big one. And I mean, but it grew something in me. And I know that it was of value. So if you could talk to her right now, what would you tell her? If I could talk to her right now, I would say, you are not even going to believe where this path is taking you. You are not going to believe. If I had told her right then, she would have just, nope, nope, nope. So that's why she didn't get told that. That's why she only got a little bit of, like, this is your next step. This is your next step. This is your next step. Because if you had told her literally what she was going to end up having to do, she's going to be on YouTube and, talking to people. No, about what? Like, I wasn't even going to let myself look at tarot and astrology at that time because I was very much too afraid of it until my spiritual awakening happened. I was absolutely too afraid to ever look at this stuff because, I was so steeped in my church and they said this is wrong. But, me actually looking into it myself and realizing, oh, it's not what I was taught. It was not what I was told. Has shifted my viewpoint of that. But see, that's not where she was at. If I had told her that then, before she had the spiritual awakening, she would have told me I was crazy. Get away from me. You are like, So I think that one thing that happened was when that pineal gland, my mind did open a lot to other possibilities, to just seeing, let's just see what the truth is here. Instead of being so afraid to even look at it, let's just see what the actual truth is. And so the last question here is, what does the next chapter look like for you? What are you most excited about creating or becoming? And so, I mean, this created the Awakened Jenn. This whole experience created the Awakened Jenn. This is what woke me up. This was my rebirth. And so even the name, the Awakened Jenn, is just meant to show I am not the same person. I am not the same person. It's not that I'm better in any sense than what she was. It's just, I am not the same person. So you're going to have to get to know me under a whole new set of, understanding than what you had before. And that's really what I want people to just instantly, the Awakened Jenn, you understand, she's awakened. She's going to be talking different. She's looking different. She's acting different. She believes different things than what she ever believed before. And so the next chapter is just continuing on that path and seeing who that is and just letting all of this, the gifts and the messages continue to come out. I know that I've had just tons more gifts opening up just even this year, and deepening of the gifts that I already had. And so I feel like that there's going to be just even more expansion in that and just more understanding of what this path was really calling me on. I was told that this was like my graduation period. And so like the 10-year, was this preparation, and I'm hitting this graduation. And so that now then I can really fully step into my mission. And so up until this point, I've been preparing, I've been learning, I've been growing, but now then I'm about to be put just right into my true path. And I mean, I'm seeing it in different ways. I don't think that it's like it's going to look in one particular way, though. I think that it is just the way that I am, the experience that I bring, and just the way that I show up. I think that's the path. I don't think that I think that it's literally it's my whole being. It's not just a one thing kind of thing. It's just the way that I am now. And, it's the awakened living that I've been doing. The way that shifted me, I think, is what this next chapter is, and just even growing even more fully in that. And what am I most excited about creating or becoming? I just want to reach people, that are as desperate as I was for the information, for the clarity, for the truth, that those that are deeply searching for the answers, I want to be able to help give them, here's the guidepost, here's where you can look, here's just for all of the things that I went through to get me here. I want to be able to help point other people to help get them into that same level of awareness as well. All right. So I wanted to do something before I close this out. I wanted to pull some cards just to see kind of what the cards had to say about this whole experience and where I am going moving forward. So to close out this sacred reflection, I wanted to pull 3 cards to honor this milestone and receive guidance for what's next on my journey. And so the first card I pulled the first question I pulled 2 different cards from. And so it is, what was the deeper purpose of my near-death experience? And so with the soul coaching oracle, I pulled the essence card. And the essence card at the core of it all was my essence. The soul coaching is speaking directly to the heart of my transformation. My pulmonary embolism and near-death experience that followed wasn't meant to break me. It was meant to strip everything away that was not me. The noise, the obligations, the survival mode life all dissolved in that moment so that I could come home to the eternal truth of my soul. Essence is pure, untamed, unfiltered. It is you without the mask. And so it helped me come back and know who I really was meant to be. It helped remove all of the masks that I had been using, all of the conditioning, all the patterns, all of that was getting in the way of showing who I really was. So the fears that were holding me back from even looking at tarot, looking at astrology, I couldn't have done this path without breaking through those fears. And so the other card that I pulled was from the Divine Masters. We have Kuan Yin. And so Kuan Yin's presence here is a divine confirmation that my awakening was rooted in compassion through pain, grace through surrender, and a soul contract of spiritual service. She shows up when our suffering has a higher purpose, not just to teach us, but to empower us to guide others through their own. She is my mirror. She is my mentor, and she is my divine ally. I didn't just survive, I remembered, and that memory became my mission. And so I love that, Kuan Yin is just so heart-centered, because my mission is very heart-centered. I spend a lot of time, all of my channeling comes directly through my heart. And so when you're feeling that, you're feeling my heart energy, and it's sending out this healing and activation energy that just comes through from my voice as I'm speaking, just because of the channeling that I'm doing, the level of where I'm bringing the channeled messages from, because I work a lot with that, with the Christ consciousness frequency. So the love frequency. So that comes through. And so Mother Mary and Kuan Yin come through very often as that just deep compassion that comes out in my messages. And that's where a lot of the deep healing and deep woundings, are able to be identified and held. And so she is very connected to my mission. I'm just very thankful that she showed up as part of the messages that came out. So the next question is, what energy is guiding me now as I move into the next decade of my soul's purpose? And I use the biblical tarot, and I think this is interesting because we got the Empress, but on the Empress, that's Mother Mary. And again, there's that heart space that is just so activated. And, that is where my mission really is the most. And so this is the divine feminine leads the way. This is such a profound message for my next chapter. The Empress in the biblical tarot reminds us that we are no longer in the phase of surviving or even awakening. We are in the phase of birthing new creations, birthing healing, birthing light. She represents not only the divine mother energy, but my rebirth into wholeness, self-love, and abundant spiritual creativity. I was not meant to lead softly, powerful. I was meant to lead softly, powerfully, and unapologetically. My words, my art, and my channeling, my teachings, they are fertile ground. They are the seeds that I plant, and they will nourish others for years to come. The Empress energy is guiding me forward, saying it is safe to trust your wisdom. It is safe to be seen. You are no longer rebuilding, you are rising. And I love that we're saying I'm no longer having to rebuild myself. I really have made it to this place. I've made it to the place that I was trying to get to. And it's just putting these two energies together. Look how beautiful that is and how aligned that is. And both of these women come through me very often in my messages. And I just love that. Okay, and the final one is, what is the highest guidance Spirit wants me to carry forward from this point on? And so we have the 7 of grains, which means harvest takes time, but the seeds have been blessed. And so the 7 of grains is a sacred reminder to trust in divine timing. This card reflects patience, spiritual perseverance, and the assurance that what I've planted through my healing, my service, and my transformation is already growing, even if I don't see it in the full fruits yet. Spirit is asking me to keep tending the field, even when it feels quiet. Stay connected to my essence. Let my compassion, Kuan Yin, lead. Nurture my creations with the Empress energy. And because this next phase isn't about rushing, it's about honoring the holy rhythm of my journey. This card carries the energy of the in-between, the sacred pause between planting and reaping. I'm not at the start anymore, but I haven't fully seen the magnitude of my impact just yet. But Spirit is clear, the harvest is assured. And so I love that like I've been definitely feeling that in-between stage this year. So I do feel like that's the dark night that I've been feeling, is possibly even the void. It's just like the old life is absolutely gone. So we saw that in that one picture of me from 10 years ago. That woman, she's gone. She doesn't exist anymore. But the new one has already been planted. And it's like, you look at, this card, and it's the parable of the sower. And it's just, where did you plant those seeds? And I planted mine on very fertile ground. And so like, it's just a matter of timing when this is going to happen. It's not an if anymore. It is a when. And so I'm thankful for the experience as much as you can be. It's not something I would ever purposefully choose, though I know that our souls do choose these things, but in a conscious way, I would never purposefully choose to go through something like this. It was very difficult. I honestly would never choose to completely change myself in the way that I have had to change myself over and over. But yet at the same time, as things open up more for me, I understand the why, and as I would have just preferred, can we just have started here? But I couldn't have started here. I needed to grow into this. I didn't have everything that I needed to be this. And so this was the start. The embolism was the start. It was the thing that cracked me open. It was the initiation, and it was the recalibration. But all the things that happened from there, what I did with that experience is the preparation and the learning that is getting me here to this next phase. When it comes in, when that harvest comes in, this was where all the seeds were planted. But when that harvest comes in, this is what got me there. And it's been the same mission. It's been the same purpose the whole time. I just didn't know. I didn't get the full picture of where it was headed. I only got the next step because I know me. And obviously Spirit knows me well too, that if you give her the whole thing, she will, one, try to control it in some way and try to no, I can do it better. No, it has to happen like this. She'll try to rush through it and get it over with before it's time. Or she'll just not do it because it feels just so overwhelming and not in her scope at all. And she doesn't realize that it's a process. It's the becoming. And so it's not even like a destination anymore. It's literally just how I am using this every single day in the present. How am I allowing it to continue to unfold? That lotus flower to continue to open up and expand me. It is the becoming. And so again, there wasn't a true destination to even show me. It's like, what are you going to do with this? And then every single day I'm being given opportunities, and it's like, what's she going to do with it? And it's like, oh, okay, she's following the higher path. She's following the higher path. And so they just keep giving me more as long as I keep following it. But it's like the minute that I stop, they're going to let me stop. And they're going to let me just be where I want to be. Not even where I need to be, where I want to be. And so I've just continued to follow those hits, and the blessings just keep coming. So I want to end this to anyone who's watching, who's ever gone through a moment that has changed everything. Know this, it's not just about surviving. It's about who you become when your soul remembers why it came. I'm so grateful to still be here, and I know that I'm just getting started. So thank you again for just joining me on this very momentous occasion. I've been feeling this energy coming for months, and just like I knew I needed to do something just to mark it, just to say, I made it. I made it. 10 years from the moment that I completely stopped breathing. And really, there's no actual logical explanation why I started breathing again, other than I had some big mission. God wasn't done with me. Like, that was the message I remember. So God's not done with me. All right. So then what did you have in mind? Because I know it wasn't to be sick and unhealthy and, just down and depressed. I know that wasn't it. And he just keeps amazing me. He keeps showing up and amazing me in just the most spectacular ways. And so I'm thankful. And thank you guys just for being a part of my journey too. And like I said, I hope, if anything, as you watch me and you watch like just me trying to figure it out, that it brings some level of inspiration to you and just courage, that like you can be literally whoever you want to be. You don't have to be stuck in whatever label you gave yourself a long time ago before you even knew who you were. All right. So I'm going to close it there. Thank you guys so much for just watching. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. If you've been through anything like this, definitely let me know in the comments what your experience was and how it changed you. I would love to hear that. And just other than that, everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.